Welcome in to the latest episode of Betting the Pitch with your host, the real underscore G Warner. We are 24-8 year to date. We're going to go through the 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday, of the Champions League match day 7. We'll try to give as much as I possibly can about the permutations of where teams are going to be and what they're fighting for. There are first round buys once you get the knockout stages. The top 24 teams all make it on to the next round. I believe number 10 through 25, I think, match up in a knockout just to get to the buys. So a lot on the line as we march down the end of this Champions League season, trying to fit this in before the national championship of college football starts. But I'm not there, not attending, as my alma mater always loses in the semifinals. Forever the bridesmaid, never the bride. On this episode, like I said, I'm going to go through both days of the Champions League card, pick out a best bet from each of the days, and then pick one and make that my best bet end of show. You can find the 1 minute version, the reels on Instagram at the real underscore G Warner, and on YouTube at the real underscore G Warner. The rest episodes, full episodes, come out on YouTube at the real underscore G Warner, plus under the Betting the Pitch name on both Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. And if that is confusing, please let me know, and I'll do my best to make that as simple as possible. But it's time to get in on this episode. We're going to start in the early window on Tuesday. We have Association Sportive de Monaco. They are hosting Aston Villa, France versus England, though I guess Monaco technically is not in France, but that's neither here nor there. Currently, Monaco pick'em right now, a little bit more juice at BetOnline. All lines are quoted courtesy of BetOnline throughout this podcast. If you're not a member at BetOnline or Sportsbetting.ag, go check them out because you can get some free money at both of those casinos, and that seems to be something that's going away in the sports betting marketplace, unfortunately. I think somebody's realized that customer acquisition costs are way too high, and giving bettors free money is probably not the best idea for them. So I would certainly suggest hopping on that as soon as possible. If you've never deposited, go get your free money. First time deposits at BetOnline, Sportsbetting.ag, and there's links in the podcast descriptions to get some to make sure you grab that cash. But Monaco to pick them, I guess I lean that way because I'm rarely playing underdog and underplayer, as anyone who listens to this podcast knows. But ultimately, I think the grabbing Villa to pick them just because they're in a bigger league, I think is fool's gold and wouldn't be the smartest move, I must say. I think that we usually see a ton of UK money hitting everywhere, essentially, too. So those are all things to think about, I think, when potentially betting this sport. I did just tweet out, by the way, so hopefully we are live and everyone can see this. I just want to make sure I didn't lose okay, we're still here. Still live, still counting down or counting up. So for this matchup, my biggest interest here is Monaco getting that, I guess getting nothing. Currently at pick'em, not laying anything. So a draw at home will end up getting your money returned to you with a chance they do win a home match. Totals 2 3/4 in this one, just a little bit more to over. I don't know necessarily. So I had this number a little bit lower, but Champions League, I feel like, is usually it's an underplayer's paradise. But at the same time, you do see plenty of goals. We saw really Monaco just completely fall apart in their last matchup, but it was a month ago, December 11th, I think it was the last round of Champions League. So a long time ago, maybe December 12th. But the competition is certainly heating up, and it should be a really interesting match day here. We have Monaco on 10 points, currently sitting 16th out of the 36. That would have them advancing. Aston Villa, on the other hand, they are higher up the table. Yes, they are fifth right now in an automatic, I guess in a bye situation. They have 3 more points at 13. So that's really helpful. Certainly you could argue that Aston Villa will be potentially playing for a draw here to try to keep Monaco from catching up to them. But I think there's so many possibilities and permutations, as I said already, that I don't think that that's going to really figure into a lot of this. My takes on Monaco: they're an offensive, front-footed team, despite a fairly conservative manager in Adi Huta. I think the Villa strategy is to try to defend, play with a high line. It doesn't work as well away from home as it does at home. Just a lot of concerns here. I think it's probably best to move on to the next game. We'll go to Atalanta hosting Sturm Graz. Currently, Atalanta 2-goal favorites with all the juice. Totals 3.5, juice all the way to under. So Atalanta haven't been as big of a goal scoring team this season. They have scored 13 in their 6 matches in Champions League so far, but have only conceded 4. Sturm Graz, I think, are not good. They've got some talented players, but they don't really know how to play on this level, to say the least, and certainly not on a Serie A level. Their coach left mid-season for Hoffenheim alongside the sporting director, which seemed like really bad hires, in my opinion, but they happened. I think at this point, Atalanta, they're probably disappointed sitting 13th right now. Sturm Graz sitting 29th is probably expected. Sturm Graz are going to have to win this match, but I don't know necessarily the currently sitting 29th out of 36 teams is going to go that crazy just to win this match. I think they're going to try to play well, try to keep it low scoring. I think that all kind of factors in or points toward an under 3.5 goals in this matchup. Atalanta can certainly run wild. They're gigantic favorites. But I feel like if they get ahead, they're probably going to potentially look to save some energy for the Scudetto charge in Serie A to try to win that title. So I think my biggest interest here is in that Sturm Graz under 3.5 goals as we move to the next big window of games on Tuesday afternoon here in the United States. We'll start with Bologna, quarter goal underdog at home to Borussia Dortmund. Totals 2.75, just really heavily to under right now. Bologna have been, I think, getting better. Goals have been a problem for them for years, despite making the Champions League last season. Coach left, a lot of their best talent was sold, but they brought in some, and I feel like they've kind of been working into a better offensive form, I guess you could say. And Borussia Dortmund are a disaster. I think they should have been parted ways with Nuri Sahin months ago, but I don't know that's necessarily happened yet. I didn't see that after their loss on Friday. Looks like yeah, it's probably sounds like it will be Eric Ten Hag, which I mean, I guess could work, but I don't know necessarily if that's really what you want to be doing because I mean, he's proven his ability before, but it hasn't really gone very well. Am I seeing? Okay, so we still have, according to Transfer Market, Nuri Sahin. I haven't missed him getting sacked yet, but I think it's coming. Probably waiting for this another road loss potentially here, but. Dortmund as a quarter goal favorite away from home is very high on my list to fade. In terms of the total, 2.75 feels a little bit low for Borussia Dortmund's struggles defensively, but you also got to consider how poor they've been offensively too. So, man, at this point, I think it's really just Bologna a quarter goal underdog at home, and that's a number I'm gonna be watching. It's currently juiced pretty heavily on the Dortmund side, which feels like a ridiculous statement to say, but here we are. It's 2025. And I'm not looking past Bologna as a home underdog to a team that can't win on the road and has to based on the spread. Move next to Benfica hosting Barcelona. Currently, Benfica half a goal underdog at home with all the juice. Total is 3.25, just a little bit more to over. Didn't also say where Bologna and Borussia Dortmund were on the table, so I'll say that before I move forward. But Bologna is sitting 33rd with only 2 points this season, 2 draws. Not great. Certainly, you're backing one of the worst performers. Dortmund have been better in Champions League like they were last season. They're the first position out of the automatic buys in the top 8 on 12 points. So Dortmund are certainly in better position here, but I'm not betting that that is something that will continue. And I look forward to Borussia Dortmund moving on and trying to bet against them as much as possible until they're out of Champions League, until they've parted ways with their manager, or until because you can't fire the whole team. So there's not a lot they can do there. Moving to Benfica and Barcelona. Benfica half a goal underdog, as I said, totals 3.25. Juice more to the over and all the juice on the home underdog. Barca, they've been really great in any competition so far. They're currently second with 1 loss, just behind the perfect Liverpool at this point on 15 points. They are 3 points ahead of their nearest chaser, Dortmund, on the 12, who are not currently in a bye situation. So I feel like all these teams have something to play for. That's probably exactly why the Champions League designed it this way. But Benfica, they're sitting 15th on 10 points. PSG on 7 are the closest challenger that's outside and will be eliminated from the competition. So plenty to play for, of course, both ways. The big question is, how does Benfica stop Barcelona? Benfica's been more offensive this year than I think you'd expect most Portuguese clubs because they realize that they have lower budgets and they usually play a lot more defensively. But Benfica haven't really in this competition, and Barcelona is probably not the place to start. though I imagine Benfica will set up defensively at home. I think my biggest interest here is in that half a goal underdog. As an underplayer, Barcelona makes me really concerned. 3.25 feels a little bit low, honestly, in this one. Um, so I think I'll probably skip along to the next matchup, and that is this first place Liverpool, first place in Champions League, first place in the English Premier League. Currently perfect, 18 points from 6 wins in this competition. They are hosting Lille, who have been another incredible performer. They're the last seed of the buys into the knockout round. Currently Lille on 13 points, and they're 1.75 goal underdogs here on the road at Liverpool. All the juices on the Lille side, but even a fall to 1.5 doesn't really scare me too much. I'm very interested in Lille. They've been great to me, great to anyone who's been backing them as an underdog in the Ligue 1 in France, also in Champions League, of course. Total in this one is 3.25, and I honestly I don't really believe that this Liverpool offense is as stellar as it has been. They've scored 13 goals in 6 matches, won them all. Just a little over 2 goals a match. I mean, it's not a ton. They've only given up one, which is saying something. But we've seen Lille go into Atletico Madrid and win at the Wanda Metropolitano or whatever Riyadh Air they've called it, or rechanged the Blood Money has changed the name too. But I think at this point, like I'm really not afraid of Liverpool at this type of level. I mean, they're great, of course, but they're not as dominant as they were under Jurgen Klopp, not as scary. They're great, they're talented, and I think they're more pragmatic and better to win this competition. But I don't think that they're that likely to win by 2 goals or more than 2 goals to take your full unit. So interested in Lille getting that goal in 3/4, also to the under 3.25 in this matchup. Move next to Atletico Madrid hosting Bayer Leverkusen. Currently, Atleti are below Leverkusen in the table. Leverkusen are fourth right now on 13 points, tied all the way down with Lille. Atletico Madrid, they're on 12. They're in one of the top of the having to play first rounds. And not abide to the second round of the knockouts. Currently, we have Atleti, a quarter goal favorite at home with all the juice on Leverkusen away. Totals 2.5, juice pretty heavily to under right now. Atleti, I think, are bigger budget. I think that's probably clear. I think they're better, more talented overall. They certainly didn't have the year that Bayer Leverkusen did last season because nobody did. But at this point, and by the way, if you're coming in and you got any comments, questions you want to throw in, I do have them up and available if you want to throw something in there. But to finish on Atleti, they're not someone I really want to fade, especially with a very juiced quarter of a goal on Leverkusen. I think I'll be waiting actually to see if Atleti move to pick them because I think that's where I'd want to be. I don't really trust Leverkusen's defense. Yes, they've been really hot in the German Bundesliga, but the difference between the talent on that club and Xabi Alonso, of course, and the rest of the Bundesliga is far different than what you'd see, especially on the road away at Atleti. I think the total at 2.5 feels a little bit low to me, honestly. I think we could see some goals in this matchup. That's not really the better I am, so I think I'll wait for Atleti to pick them. Until then, nothing for me on that one. Club Bruges then hosts Juventus. Currently, Bruges, or Brugge, as they say, all the English broadcasters probably wrong. They're a quarter goal underdog at home. The juice split both ways. Totals 2.25, juice pretty heavily to over. In terms of Juve, they are at 11 points, right in the middle of the moving on, but no buys league status standings. And Bruges are similar. They're on 10 points, so they're, I guess, a point behind Juve, but have been, I think, okay. And honestly, been they have a lot more talent than I think most Belgian sides you'd expect. And they also have, I think, a lot more ability. So I think this is a really scary matchup for Juve. I like Bruges getting that quarter of a goal. I also really like an under with any sort of time that Juve are a favorite away from home. So under 2.5, or excuse me, under 2.25, might get to 2.5, and also that quarter of a goal underdog. Very interested in Bruges at home. 2 matches left on Tuesday. Then I'll give you my best bet from Tuesday, then smash it in with what I give you on Wednesday a little bit later. We'll start with Crvena Zvezda, or Red Star Belgrade, hosting PSV Eindhoven. Currently, Crvena Zvezda, a 3/4 goal underdog at home with almost all the juice. Totals 3.25, juice almost all the way to under. We'll go to where everyone is in the standings. Crvena Zvezda, Red Star Belgrade are 31st right now on 3 points. So they are 5 points behind. They need a win. basically, if they don't win, they are eliminated. So you might see them being a little bit more aggressive, though I think they realize that a Serbian side competing with the best in the world is best in Europe, at least, is very tough. On the PSV side, though, I think they've been performing a little bit better. They're on 8 points right now in 23rd. So they're hanging on to an advance to the playoff knockouts right now. And they're a favorite away from home. So I would expect this to be two teams trying to be as aggressive as possible to score goals. For that reason, PSV's defense has not been great to memory. But I do think going to Belgrade, that's a really tough place to play. So I'm pretty interested in an under 3.25 here. Two teams that are trying to win. And I think that means we have less goal mouth action. Could, of course, result in a shootout, but that's always things that I'm hoping don't happen. I'll lean to under 3.25, especially I think any total that gets above 3 in soccer is a really nice spot to be because it's really hard to score 4 goals in a match. It certainly happens, but it's hard to do. Last on this Tuesday portion of the card and the portion of this episode, we have Slovan Bratislava, a 1.75 goal underdog at home. All the juice on Stuttgart away. Total is 3.5, and it's just pretty heavily to under. Stuttgart to me are a great possession team, but I don't really trust them to score as much. Maybe that's been a result of Dennis Undav's injury. They did have a good come from behind victory over RB Leipzig just last week before they ended up pissing off the strikers enough to get them both sent off. LOL. But I think at this point, the Stuttgart big favorite away from home, I think there's some value going against it. The problem is Slovan Bratislava are pretty bad. They're from Slovakia, the biggest city on I think the western side of the country, very close to Vienna. Almost went there a couple of years ago. And all incomers to the live stream, feel free to throw in a comment if you can, or I guess text me otherwise or hit me up anywhere you can at the real_G Warner across social media, and I'm happy to go into things a little bit deeper. But at this point, I think any Stuttgart total above 3, I'm looking unders. I think there's a lot of talent in Stuttgart and a big divide here, and that probably might be what keeps me away. But I'll lean to Slovan Bratislava under 3.5. And so for my best bet from Tuesday, I don't think I'm going to make it as complicated as anyone can. Probably you might have even heard it already going through this episode, but I'm fading Borussia Dortmund every time they're a road favorite the rest of the season, most likely, unless things change significantly or they get some sort of new sporting director. I think that's where the problem is. I think they've been pushing coaches around, managers around, and honestly, Edin Terzic looks like a god right now compared to what Nuri Sahin, who they kind of forced in as an assistant coach last season and then forced Edin Terzic out. It's not been working. So give me Bologna at quarter goal underdog. We'll move now to Wednesday, where we have RB Leipzig in the early matchup holding Sporting Lisboa from Lisboa or from Lisbon, Portugal. Currently Leipzig on 0 points, as I know, as I've drafted them in a pool that I'm in. I have two of the 0 point getters so far, RB Leipzig and Young Boys Bones. So I am probably got no chance to win. And I usually win that pool every year. So that's very disappointing, or at least finishing the money every year. RB Leipzig, on the other hand, they have very rested Lois Openda and also their other striker, Slovakian Benjamin Cesko, both suspended this past weekend for red cards in the German Bundesliga midweek. Xavi Simons has come back, and he seems like a really important piece to them. Quarter goal underdog at home for Leipzig. Yes, they've been horrible. I'm not going to dispute that, but that's a really nice price for a team that plays very well at home and is finally getting somewhat near health. Sporting Clube de Portugal have been awesome, but their manager left for Manchester United mid-season. I think there's a lot of problems there, potentially, at least for the rest of this Champions League campaign. I lean to under 3, though I'm a little bit less interested there. I think the push on 3 is crucial. But I think I'm probably more interested in the Leipzig home underdog, though it's very juiced at the moment. Move next, Shakhtar Donetsk hosting Stade Brestois, currently Shakhtar, a pick'em with a little bit more juice on Brest away from home. Though Shakhtar Donetsk are playing in a non-home, and they call it their home environment because nobody's playing Champions League soccer in the Ukraine right now. Total's 2.5, juice more really heavily to under as we speak. I'm interested in the Brest side, not so much at pick'em, but honestly, it's pretty much like a neutral site, so I'm not as afraid as I normally would be. So I'll put that on the list at a pick'em, but also interested in under 2.5. I don't know necessarily that I trust the Shakhtar Donetsk defense, but they're a counterattacking side and have been for years. And I think that's going to basically set up where Brest won't want to take too many chances. I guess Stade Brestois, I might as well say. So Sporting Club from the last match, they're 17th. Leipzig are already eliminated, so don't need to say where they are on the table. But Shakhtar, they're sitting 27th on 4 points. They need to get up to 8 just to even tie the last place of those that are moving on. That's going to be tough. They're probably in need of a win here, which you would expect that in at home, though it's technically not their home, I think. Stade Brestois currently seventh and sitting in one of the buys positions. So certainly a result would be great for them, might clinch them, or at least get them closer to clinching a place in the knockouts, which is, I think, more than Stade Brestois would have ever expected in their first European campaign, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but I'm pretty interested in really just fading Shakhtar Donetsk as a nominal home team existing in name only, as I think that definition reads. We'll move to the big window of games. We have Feyenoord hosting Bayern Munchen. Currently, Feyenoord 1.25 goal underdogs at home with more juice on Bayern. Totals 3.25, juice all the way to over. When I look at Feyenoord, I mean, I feel like they lost Arne Slot to Liverpool, and they certainly have kept some of their talent and ability, and I think it's more about the club. Seen 29 goals in their 6 matches, so that's a ton of scoring. They're currently on 10 points, sitting 18th. Bayern Munchen are on 12 points, sitting 10th, and they've seen, let's see, 25 goals in their 6 matches. So, surprise, surprise, we should see a pretty big total here. 3.25 feels a little bit low. It's juice to the over, so we probably see it hitting 3.5. Feyenoord are, I mean, Dutch crowds are great. I'm sticking with that kind of mentality and thought process. It's really scary to fade Bayern Munchen, but as a bigger than a goal favorite in Champions League, away from home in another country, that does, I think, add up and make me interested in Feyenoord. But for now, I think I'll wait and see and see if there's some Bayern Munchen money that comes in as you'd always expect it from the biggest clubs in Europe. Move next to AC Milan hosting Girona. Currently, Milan, a 1.25 goal favorite at home. Almost all the juice on Girona away. Totals 2.75, juice more to the over. Milan sitting 12th on 12 points. Not safe by any means, but in good position. I think win, I think will clinch them a position for sure. Girona, they have been struggling with injuries all season, and I think this is their first European campaign. Welcome to the Champions League, where they're sitting 30th on 3 points with only one win in 6 matches. I think Girona is a big underdog, and it should be. They want to play front-footed, but they haven't been able to do that because they've not had the talent, and they have had a lot of their talent they did at least maintain or keep or acquire get hurt this year. I don't know that there's much I want to do here. I still think there's the jury's out on Conceição, the new manager for Milan. I'm not really sure which direction he's going. Move next to Arsenal hosting Dinamo Zagreb. Zagreb, I think one of the bigger surprises to be holding on to a advancing spot. They're currently 24th out of 24 to get through, but their 8 points has them 1 point ahead of PSG, Stuttgart, and others. From an Arsenal's perspective, they've been great in this competition, sitting third on 13 points. They're 2.25 goal favorites with more juice, totals 3.25, juice pretty heavily to over. The run of Arsenal games was playing under the whole time. I feel like that's been dead for a while, a lot because their defense has been worse. Though I gotta say, the Arsenal injuries up front with having to rely on Kai Havertz is a dangerous thing. I think for my biggest interest in this matchup, there's not much that I want here necessarily, but it'd be Dinamo Zagreb under 3.25 goals, just trying their best to try to keep a zero or keep the clean sheet as long as possible and see if they can score on the other end. I don't think they'll have many opportunities. I think Arsenal will stamp out that fire pretty quickly. But Arsenal 4-0 feels pretty hard to do, and that'd be a pretty significant cover for them. So I do like the under 3.25 in that matchup on Wednesday. Move next to just did Arsenal. We'll move next to PSG hosting Manchester City. And this is a big battle because PSG are currently sitting outside of the advancing positions on 7 points. And let's just say this is the competition they play for. So PSG on 7, Manchester City, who have been horrible compared to their standards, they're at 22nd in this table on 8 points. So this is a pretty big deal. I wouldn't call it a play out game, but you could argue that it's certainly pointing in that direction. From a line perspective, PSG are a pick 'em with all the juice. Total is 3, just a little bit more to under. I think PSG is the side I'd want here. I'm just looking to be against Manchester City as much as possible. It probably shouldn't surprise anyone, as I've been basically betting against Manchester City hand over fist as much as I could, as long as I had some decent belief in the club they were playing. I don't know that I'd feel comfortable backing PSG as a juiced favorite, and probably not a quarter goal favorite, because that does make me think Manchester City would be one of the biggest values, one of the biggest clubs and best clubs in the world, getting or winning a portion of a bet just with a draw. Though away from home in the Parc des Princes is hard, a CS Paris. But I think at this point, Not really wanting to play any totals, though. Two teams that are fighting for the ball with big names usually don't see as much scoring as you'd expect. I do think we could see that here. I'll lean to PSG as a pick 'em, but probably not going to grab that until we see some Manchester City money come in, which could, because like I said, the UK money does dominate this market and really all of the continental competitions. We'll move next to Celtic hosting Young Boys. Currently, Celtic a goal and a half favorite. Totals 3.25. Juice pretty heavily to over. Juice is about even a little bit more on the Celtic side. Currently at BetOnline. Young Boys currently sitting on 0 points. One of my selections, though I picked like one of my last options. Leipzig on zero or not, unfortunately. But Celtic, they are currently doing much better. They're on 21st in the competition, sitting on 9 points, and they have a reasonable shot at advancing. So, as a big favorite at home to Young Boys, great position for them to be in. I really hope I didn't, but I think I picked Young Boys over Celtics. So, RIP to me, and those decisions get punished. I think the big price here is significant, but I don't think there's much I want to do on this one. So, we'll move to Sparta Prague hosting Inter Milan as AC Sparta. They're currently on 4 points in 28th. Probably believe they still have a chance here, but I think they're the lowest possession team in the competition. Not always great. Inter 1.25 goal favorites. They are a little bit more juiced right now. Totals 2.75. Juiced pretty heavily to over. I think Sparta Prague is going to try to defend like crazy. We'll see how that works. It has at times at home and has not. Inter though have been really great defensively. They're currently sitting in sixth position. Have only conceded once in this tournament competition, but they've only scored 7 times. So I'm pretty interested, more so I think in the under 2.75. Would love to get a 3 on this matchup. But I think there's a good chance we don't see much scoring in this matchup. Last but not least, before we get to the ultimate best bet, and I'm going to be late for a dinner reservation, so I probably need to make this quick. Real Madrid, 2.75 goal favorites to Red Bull Salzburg. Total is 4 in this matchup, juiced slightly to under. Maybe because Kylian Mbappe is finally playing. But Real Madrid have not been as great in this competition, sitting 20th right now, 9 points. And then their competitor, Salzburg, on 3 points, sitting 32nd. This is a great spot for Real Madrid to get healthy or get better or get fat and happy and score some goals. I don't know that I want much to do with teams going into the Bernabeu unless I think they're better than Real Madrid or Real Madrid are really struggling or not motivated or are focused on some other competition. I think Real Madrid are going to be very fired up for this matchup, and that makes it very, very scary to do anything with Red Bull Salzburg in this matchup. So it's time now for the ultimate best bet, and I can get the heck out of here and try not to be late for my friend, but we'll see how that goes as usual. Just things to plug. So if you've not been with us on the NFL podcast on this network, Betting the Pitch on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, also found at the real_G Warner on YouTube and the shorts version plus the full version, then also on Reels, where you can see this episode. We went undefeated in our double best bet. Both picked the Commanders on Saturday night. That was a nice win. I think we're 3-1 in the playoffs so far, and that's where we shined last year. So make sure you tune in for the big conference championship show, which we'll be recording tomorrow night. Good news with Big East Ben and I will be replacing that college football episode with the season ending tonight. We'll be doing 2 episodes a week of college basketball starting, I think, next week. I would love to find a way to do that this week, but I think that might be hard to do with schedules, and it's already Monday evening. But stay tuned for that. And of course, soccer podcast coming always out at Betting the Pitch and on at the real_G Warner, wherever you're looking, wherever you're listening. And please leave a 5-star review if you could. It's huge for the search rankings. Try to get this podcast building and maybe do more of this. Try to entertain you on your way to work or while you're walking your dog or whatever the heck you're doing. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it. 5-star reviews are great. Patreon subscribers are awesome, and new YouTube subscribers are also great. And that reminds me, I just need to shout somebody out before I get into this 2-minute, or actually 1 minute, I think is the rule version. But thank you for, of course, all the subscribers. But Billy Franklin's the newest one. Thank you for coming in, and always a special shout out to all of you subscribers on Patreon. You've been great. I appreciate. I think we've found a nice way to get things going. Of course, I know you want my picks as soon as possible, and I'm trying to get them out as early as I can. But thanks for the patience so far, and I think it's time to get into the ultimate best bet. Hey, this is real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. We are 24-8, 75% on our best bets this season. Went through both days of the Champions League card this week and came out with a best bet on each Tuesday and Wednesday. And this is where you grade me, and this is where the grading comes from. From Tuesday, I really like Bologna, a quarter goal underdog at home to Borussia Dortmund. And on Wednesday, I really like the Sparta Prague, Inter Milan under 2 and 3/4 goals. But for the ultimate best bet on this episode, make sure if you want more of this content and all the picks that I offer, go to patreon.com/real_G Warner. Get all my picks across all sports when I lock them in. When you know my leans, get write-ups, all that sort of stuff ahead of time. Go check it out, patreon.com/real_G Warner. But I'm going to go with Bologna, quarter goal underdogs at home. Don't really have much to say besides Borussia Dortmund is a road favorite. I'm looking to fade that as much as I can. And a Bologna team that hasn't played well in this competition, this is a great spot for them to try to find some way, some momentum at the end of Champions League. And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. I will see you next week, or actually on Wednesday night, most likely, for Thursday Europa League. And I got to get the heck out of here. So thanks so much for joining. I will see you all very soon, and talk to you later.